Yo, what's going on, Ghost here, and today I'm bringing you guys another comparison video between the C58 and NZ-41. Now, I know this comparison seems a little weird, but ever since I used the C58, it's kind of made me wonder on whether or not this gun's actually better than the NZ-41, which right now, the NZ-41 still, right now, is the best AR in the game. And even after it got nerfed last week, and potentially another nerf this upcoming week. Thankfully, though, I do not think that today, Wednesday, is going to be update day. If it is, I'm going to be in... then I mean that's just bad luck. But I do believe that tomorrow on Thursday, I think that's when they start dropping updates now, because last week it happened. So I'm really counting on the fact that tomorrow, Thursday, they're going to drop whatever patch they want to drop, and I do believe that more than likely the NZ-41 is going to receive another nerf. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm just going to speculate just because the nerf that they just put out did not do anything, and that's why we're making this video, is because I want to see if the C58 is capable of being better than the NZ-41, because I've been using it and it feels very similar to the gun, and I just wanted to see if it potentially could be the substitute for that gun if it gets nerfed, or even now it could be a substitute for the gun right now. But before we get into the comparison, I want to say, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 3,000. We just hit 2.06k, so thank you guys for that. We're getting closer and closer to 3,000. We're still, quite a bit away from it, but every sub does help, and it's always greatly appreciated. But with that being said, man, let's get into comparison, and yeah. And here we have the recoil pattern for the C58, which, as you guys can see, is pretty simple. I mean, this gun in general is a pretty simple gun to control, just like the NZ-41. I'm not going to lie, the NZ-41 probably does take the cake in terms of how easy it is to use and how easy it is to control, which is kind of insane, because in my opinion, the C58 isn't that hard, even after all the nerfs it's received over the course of the year and a half that it's been in the game. But if you guys remember, when this gun was in its peak, like, they did nerf this gun like 3 to 4 times, and again, it's just like the NZ-41. They could never get it right until, like, they finally killed it, and that's what I suspect is gonna happen to the NZ-41. I think at this point we're like, what, 2 to 3 nerfs in on the NZ-41, and I mean, it's still pretty good. But the C58 has been, I would say, out of meta for quite some time. Well, technically it's been out of meta, but it's still always been a really good gun. It's just that, from what from my perspective, is the reason why this gun and many of the other Cold War Modern Warfare weapons aren't the ones being used mainly. It's just because we've already used them for a whole year, and in reality, like, do you really want to use a gun that you already spent months using when new guns came out with the new game? Like, most people probably won't want to do that, which is understandable, because I mean, like I said, we've already used these weapons, but that hasn't stopped the C58, for example, being somewhat into meta. If you guys remember, I believe it was Season 2. There was a point where the C58 and a lot of other Cold War ARs in general were being used, myself included. I remember this actually before I went into PC, because on console I was using the C58. It was around April, March, that time. That's when the C58 was being someone used. I remember Biffle, if you guys know who Biffle is, was using it too. So, even though Vanguard has come out, the people have still gone back, and now I think would be another time where we might see that happen if the NZ-41 gets another nerf and it becomes not the greatest. Because to be honest, after the NZ-41 gets nerfed and it's no longer the best weapon in the game, in reality, there's really nothing else to take its place. That's from Vanguard. I mean, the Automaton is the Automaton. That's not like the heaviest hitter. In comparison to NZ-41, people are going to feel the difference. The SCG is good, but you can also feel the difference because it's been nerfed a couple times. And then the bar might be the only one that could really, at the moment, take the place, unless they end up like buffing some of these ARs. And aside from the LMG, there's really no other like Vanguard weapon that I could see taking the NZ-41's place. So we might see a time period where until they nerf or until they buff another Vanguard weapon to make it good, we might be going back to a Cold War / Modern Warfare AR meta, which I'm not really tripping about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. This gun though, I could definitely see it being the meta, because I mean, to me personally, there's a lot of similarities between this gun and the NZ-41. It does a lot of damage. The fire rate's pretty stable, like about the same. Probably that the C50 has more of an advantage. The recoil control is pretty easy, and like, I mean, these two guns are, in my opinion, like the versions of each other in each other's respective game, if that makes sense. So like the C58 is the NZ-41 of Cold War. Like, maybe you can make argument on another gun, but that's just how I see it. But I mean, let's get to the actual statistics, and let's see if the C58 is actually better and is capable of taking the NZ-41's place if and when it gets nerfed. And here we have the recoil pattern for the NZ-41, which, as you guys can see, is very, actually, not that bad compared to what it used to be. Like I say in every comparison, I mean, as you guys can see, it literally just kind of steers to the right at some point, but then it's pretty good to go. But obviously, if you've been using this weapon for the entirety that it's been meta, you would know that the recoil on this gun does not matter, because this gun literally does not move. It's ridiculous how low recoil this weapon has become, and they keep trying to nerf the recoil, but I mean, they're like 2-3 nerfs in, and here we are still with the same NZ-41 that we had at the end of last season, which is whatever. I'm saying, it is what it is. The gun, I'm actually really glad it is meta, because if you guys remember from it first coming in, actually the first like month, it was actually pretty good. Everyone thought it was the best AR, but then it fell off, and it's always been trash until now. Now it's really good. But again, like I said, the C58, pretty similar actually. Now that I look at this, it's actually very similar to the gun. That's why it felt similar, and I was actually right on that. The NZ or the Z58 being the NZ-41 of Cold War, and I'll get into that in just a second as to that why that is, because we're gonna get into the stats. So for the fire rate, the C58 has a 553 RPM, whereas the NZ-41 has a 500 RPM. Now base fire rate wise, the C58 does have an advantage. You could put on fire rate attachments on the NZ-41 though, so that probably means they're about equal when you have all your attachments, or maybe the NZ-41 has a slight advantage in what's it called, with fire rate. And so, you know, they're about the same. I wouldn't say no one has the advantage. They're about the same. And then damage-wise, they're actually very similar, except for 1 or 2 key points, because with 0 to 25 meters for the C58, you got 58 damage to the head, 40 to the neck, 37 to the chest, stomach, and extremities. For the NZ-41, 0 to 35.5 meters, you got 55 damage to the head, 48 to the neck, 40 to the chest, 37 to the stomach, and extremities. So again, they're very similar aside from like the neck damage, which has the most difference. The chest is a little bit in the advantage of the NZ-41, it's like 1 more bullet difference, but the neck is where it's really going to see the difference. But actually, the C58 has a advantage in the headshot department. So again, like I said, they're both very, very similar in every aspect of what they do. And I could definitely see that C58 passing on as the successor to the NZ-41 when it comes time to put down the NZ-41 as the meta. As you guys can see, like I said, man, these stats are very, very similar. So, you know, I think it's a very valid inference that the C58 is going to take over. Now moving over to the next set of damages, this is where it gets a little bit wonky for the C58. Actually, it's about the same. But for 25 meters and above for the C58, you got 53 damage to the head, 37 to the neck, 34 to the chest, stomach, and extremities. For 35.5 meters and above for the NZ-41, you got 51 damage to the head, 44 to the neck, 37 to the chest, 34 to the stomach, and extremities. So again, the NZ-41 has about the same advantage in damage as it did in the last range. The only difference is that at 25, or I guess 26 or 25 meters, that's when the C58 falls off to these damages, whereas the NZ-41 falls off at 35.5 meters. So technically, the NZ-41 is stronger over certain ranges, like from 26 meters to 35.5 meters. That's where the NZ-41 really has the advantage over the C58. But you know, to me, it's not that big of a difference, especially like if this gun, like I keep mentioning, does get nerfed, like the C58 will be able to, you know, come into, and it'd probably feel exactly the same. Like you really won't feel any difference. I mean, right now, like I said, the reason I made this video is because when I initially pulled this gun out, it felt so similar to the NZ-41. I had to make this comparison because it was like very similar. And here we are, like the stats and all of these things have confirmed my feelings that these guys were similar, as you guys already heard. And I do definitely think that this weapon will succeed the meta title from the NZ-41 if no Vanguard AR gets buffed to the point where it's like capable of replacing the NZ-41. Because realistically, this gun, the C58, would be the perfect replacement for the NZ-41. But there's a couple other factors, like I mentioned earlier, that probably will prevent it from becoming meta. This will probably be a low-key meta unless, like, truthfully, no Vanguard AR or Vanguard weapon in general got buffed to the point where it would be anywhere near close to the NZ-41. But if everything stays the same now and the NZ-41 was to take a serious nerf in like tomorrow's update or whenever it happens, then, you know, I think the C58 will be probably the choice of many people. But again, like I said, if people ever use this for quite some time, I'm not saying it's highly doubtful it's going to happen. I just say it's a little bit unlikely just because of other factors that's not related to the gun's performance. But we're going to have to wait and see, obviously, you know, how it works, man. It feels like in Warzone there's always a different meta. Actually, no, that's how it felt. Nowadays, it's about the same. But, hey, it is what it is. But in conclusion, man, the C58, technically on paper, is not better than the NZ-41. In my opinion, I do enjoy the gun a lot more. but technically on paper it is not. So that's what I'm gonna go with. On paper, through the stats, it is not better than the NZ-41, but it will definitely, or it's definitely very similar, like very, very similar. Like the difference between the two is very, very minimal. And with that being said, when the time comes for the NZ-41 to take a step down from its throne, I think the C58 would be a great option for it to be replacing the NZ-41. But anyways, man, let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about that C58 potentially coming back into meta. But yeah, man, thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.